AskReddit, what is your deepest, darkest secret? In 1996, I was 6 years old and a friend told me that computer mouse balls were worth as much as gold. Stupidly and with no plan, I stole one from the classroom computer. Our teacher got extremely angry and I got really scared I'd get caught. He had us all leave the room and go in one by one so that whoever stole it could anonymously put it back. I was too scared that somebody might see, so I didn't put it back. He exploded on us. The next day, I was going to try to secretly return it, but a kid randomly emptily confessed that he was the one who stole it and his mum went to the store to buy a new one. He stood in front of the class with a written apology and everything. I should have taken the stand and said, "No, Carl, you didn't steal it." I did. Shameful. Anyway, 28 years later, Carl is a stripper at a gay nightclub. When I was 11 years old, I had an upstairs neighbor who was in the Marines. I idolized this guy. He was, in my mind, the real American hero. He'd pull up in his Jeep Wrangler and step out in crisp camis looking like G.I. Joe. He was polite to my mum and my dad, always saying good morning so mom. He had a wife who was friends with my mum, and a little daughter, 6, who was friends with my little sister, 6. We'd go fishing and camping and hiking, and one day he introduced me to shooting. I was aware of guns but never actually saw them up close, let alone shoot them. He taught me how to use a rifle with a very easy to shoot .22 LR. Anyway, one night he was away, and my sister and I were upstairs hanging out with his wife and daughter, watching TV, eating Cheez-Its, just being kids. The mum is in her room. We're in the living room. My sister and the daughter go play doll house, and I got curious and started looking around. I found the rifle in a black canvas bag in a closet, so naturally, I open it up, take the rifle out, and took it to the balcony, where I proceed to go prone and look down the scope. I kept thinking to myself, whoa, it's even better when you're up higher. You can see all kinds of stuff better. Wow. And look at that car passing by. And of course I'm aiming at it and I have my finger on the trigger, and for some reason my stupid 11-year-old brain never imagined the rifle was loaded and ready to fire. So as I'm aiming at the car passing, and it's maybe 80 yards, the car is traveling slowly. I pulled the trigger. The round hits the rear passenger window. It shatters. The vehicle drifts to the right and crashes into a border wall. I am horrified. Get up. Rush back inside. Quickly stuff the rifle back in the bag. Place it upright in the closet corner where Eld found it. And as this is happening I can hear the mum getting up and going, "What's going on? What was that?" My heart is racing. I just quickly closed the closet door and ran. I left the apartment quickly and went downstairs to my place. Ran inside. Ran to my bathroom and hid in the tub with the lights off. Oh boy, the aftermath. There was an active manhunt. There were police and helicopters and searchlights. They came to knock at the doors. My dad was working and my mum had left us with the upstairs neighbor to go run errands. The upstairs lady had no idea what had happened. They asked her questions but she said she was sleeping and only heard a pop. I heard later on that the driver was actually hit, and there was an open investigation. Later on, a week after the incident, Joe comes downstairs to see if I was around because he wanted to talk to me. We took a walk and he told me that he knew it was me. I never slid the bolt back to eject the spent cartridge, and it stayed in the .22 the entire time. He said he wouldn't say anything but that I was not allowed back upstairs ever again, and that he was disappointed because I broke his trust. They moved shortly after and I never saw them again. I never told anyone and the guilt ate me up my whole life, but I was too scared to tell the truth. Edit. Just for context, it was 1995, so 29 years ago. When I was a child, I managed to get a speech therapist fired. I was in speech classes up until high school, but this happened around 3rd or 4th grade. I don't know what her official title was, but she was not the speech teacher I would see regularly. She was an older woman, probably around her 60s. I believe she was there to examine how well the speech therapy had been going in the district. She had me read sentences with the sounds and letters I struggled with. As this was happening she mocked me and she laughed at, while telling me I had the weakest tongue she had ever seen. As a child with speech impediment I was already self-conscious, but for an adult authority figure to belittle me like that, it made me never want to speak again. Once the school day was over, my mother noticed I wasn't very talkative. Eventually I broke down and I told my mum about the whole situation. She called the district and threatened legal action. We were notified soon after that the woman had been fired. There was even a phone call between my mum and the woman, where she had begged my mum for forgiveness so she could keep her job. I suppose none of this is really a secret, just something I don't talk about often. Her own actions are what led to her termination. However, secretly I do hope I ended that woman's career. As callous as that may sound, you don't mock a child, and you especially don't mock a child for something they can't control. To do so when your career has you working with children shows you're unfit for that role. Edit. I fixed some spelling. However, I also wanted to take a second to express appreciation to everyone for the kind comments. It's validating seeing you all sharing your own point of views and experiences. It's also comforting to see such a positive reaction and large amount of support over a situation that had made younger me feel like an outsider. Sincerely, thank you. I did some super sketchy spying on a girlfriend and discovered her plan to kill me and run off with her affair partner. Edit for the quick version. Figured she was cheating, which she went to great lengths to deny. Rolled the dice on my gut and decided the risk of being a complete piece of shit was worth it. Had a close friend give me a crash course with some extremely intrusive tech and confirmed the affair, of course. But then discovered she was spending a lot of time figuring the exact amount of tetrahydrozoline it would take to kill someone with my specific height and weight. She tried once and missed me. Got my best friend instead. Less than 36 hours later, he was in the ER. She evidently tried it again a few months later when we both had COVID and locked ourselves in for 2 weeks. They are married now. My friend has to take a pill for the rest of his life, and as long as I live, I'll never again underestimate how needlessly cruel people can be, even when they are telling you to your face that they love you. Back in the day, I would go to Walmart and Kmart and wipe the hard drives of every PC on display once every 2 or 3 weeks. I did this for a couple of years. I taught a friend to format from the C prompt and he started doing it too, and he taught a person after a while. All the PCs on display at the mega stores for like 20 counties around us were periodically being formatted and erased. Years later, I was talking to a guy who had worked for Walmart for like 30 years, and he was telling me how someone used to format all the PEs in the 2 Walmart he worked in. He worked in the 2 counties I frequented most. Funny thing was, they actually set up a sting operation to catch the felonious formatter, and dude was paid overtime to walk the electronic section as a plain-clothed customer for like 3 months and never caught the person. Even though I'm pretty sure I was still formatting the drives periodically. Somehow we missed each other, hahaha. For the record, I was only blowing off steam and figured that what I was doing was harmless shenanigans. I've never been in any kind of trouble with the law, and I didn't grow up to be a serial killer. But every now and then when I walk through a PC store, I get the itch. Comment. Lol. It's like the people that go and jailbreak all the Apple display devices in Walmart. I remember seeing Cydia on all the iPhones and laughing about it. In 5th grade, this kid had brought sunflower seeds to school and wouldn't share with me. Come lunchtime, we're all going to the cafeteria and I tell my teacher I forgot my lunch box, even though Elver never brought my own lunch that whole year, so I had back up the room alone. I took the sunflower seeds from his desk and secretly ate them shell and all throughout lunch, and on the way back to class I slipped them in another person's bag. He immediately noticed his sunflower seeds were gone upon arriving back to his desk and made a big deal over it, which caused the teacher to check everyone's bags and desks when she found them in the teacher's pet class snitch bag. The humiliation of his crying about how he didn't take them and ruining the view the teacher had of him was the least violent revenge of him snitching on anyone for anything he'd ended up in school suspension for 3 days. Killed 2 birds with 1 stone that day and never felt guilty about it. For a year or so I had almost an addiction, as a minor, to sending older men nudes. I sent them to maybe around 100 men. I grew up without my dad, so it made me feel great that they were appreciative of me. It felt good to have a man like me. It was a great feeling when they liked what they were seeing, which was always. Many of them stuck around as long as I wanted. It was my decision if I wanted to leave. I wouldn't have to worry as much about them leaving because I was giving them something they wanted. My favorite one was an ER doctor. I also knew guys who were university professors, firemen, you name it. I was close to meeting one of them. In real life. In his car. But he bailed. Thank God. For about a year before it started with older men. It was guys my age. A lot of them. Then it was guys just almost too old for me. Around 19. Quickly it became 20. Then 30. Then before you know it 30 was too young. At the end of this, I looked for men around 60 or 70. My dad's age. Aside from that part of my life, I act very innocent and people think I am. I doubt they would really believe it if I told them this. Comment. I did the same thing, only I coupled it with lots of promiscuous activity immediately after leaving my abusive ex-husband. I'd been forced to have sex every day for over a decade whether I wanted it or not. So I spent many years fantasizing about sex with other men. When I left, I was so angry. Still am. But every time I had sex with a new man I felt like I was getting revenge. It got out of hand. I would sleep with just about anyone. I slept with old men, ugly men, losers, ex-cons. It felt like I was telling him that literally anyone was better and preferable to him. The online thing arose as a method of getting this behavior in check. It seemed like a safer, more acceptable outlet for the sexual energy. I still occasionally get online and treat some lucky guy for a while. I've only met one creep this way. I really enjoyed the sex though. One guy worked for the police in the UK in the dark web division. I sent him nudes and talked dirty to him all day until his weekly meeting. He went into his meeting with the police wearing undies soaked in precum and he loved it. A guy my friend group and I were close with in high school fucked my best friend GF. We'll call him Jeff. And hung out with us in the days after when my friend found out he had the plan to ejaculate inside a chemistry vial from class. Every Wednesday Jeff left to bring us McDonald's because he had a car so he'd sneak out and bring us food. When Jeff went to the bathroom, my friend smeared his baby gravy onto the sandwich and mixed it up with the mayo that was already on the sandwich. Jeff loves mayo, he even bought extra packets for himself. When Jeff came he added more mayo to his sandwich. Me and my 4 other friends watched as Jeff scarfed the sandwich down in a hurry for some reason after looking at his phone. Later we find out it was to try to meet up with my buddies GF again during her free period. I cannot eat white sauces to this day and I don't eat a lot of fast food unless I PPL who work there and have them make my food. Jeff still doesn't know. Don't end up like Jeff. Is the ultimate inside insult we use to people who fuck with my friend group. We are still all friends today still. I am hanging out with 2 of them as I type this. As for the GF, she got into a car accident shortly after this and walks funny and relied on my friend to help her and love her. This was a week before Valentine's Day. He sent her flowers when she was in the hospital with a note saying Jeff got worse than you, and as a group we ghosted her. She no longer returned to school due to her injuries for a while, but by then she was labeled a slut in our school and moved away. Don't be like Jeff. When I was a teenager in Mexico, my brother and some friends were constantly in trouble in a Catholic school. We were not bad kids, but this Karen-type lady had it for us. She was continually bothering us because we liked skateboarding and she considered us a bad influence on the school. Lady Karen was a socialite and very active in Catholic school and upper class social events. The local priest didn't like us either and constantly called us trash and druggies. Yet, we were the opposite, excellent in school and in great shape because of our skateboarding. However, one day, we discovered that the lady used to go to church, but on the back of it where there was a house for the local priest. We didn't think anything suspicious at first. After all, these good assholes were always teaming up to do events. However, one of my brother's friends noticed as we skated away that the priest had kissed the lady in the mouth as she was leaving the house. We didn't believe him, but he was dead serious. So we were very invested in this and wanted to make sure we bought some disposable cameras and had a stakeout on the house for a month until we finally saw the lady visiting the priest. And bingo, as we hid behind the house windows, we could hear the moaning. So we started taking pictures from the window at every possible angle, including when they both left. These 2 were fucking, so we went after the priest first. One of us went into confession on Sunday church and inside the booth and showed the priest the photos. The priest immediately went out, running to his house. We followed him and knocked on his door while he kept crying and screaming to us to go away. We stayed outside while we talked to him and let him come to his senses on how his seminary school and his career would go to shit. Not to mention that we will show these photos to everyone, including church lady Karen's husband, who was a very wealthy and successful businessman involved in cattle trade who was also a hothead. So we proposed to the priest to make us acolytes on Sunday church, and we kept 30% of the donations, which was enough not to create suspicion with the local archdiocese. As for the Karen lady, we left a copy of the photos in her car. We set up a meeting, and after we gave her some shit, we used her for recommendations at school and local social venues. Her husband also owned a 7-Eleven type of establishment, so we could go there and get everything for free. Ultimately, she didn't want to lose her pristine, upper-class perfect life. We milked this woman for a year. At some point, we even started dating some of her posh nieces. After a year, the lady became accustomed to us and started demanding. However, we pretty much got everything we wanted as teenagers, and we were about to go to college. So we were about to bury the axe until the Karen lady started threatening us, even to the point that she sent her driver to rough us up. She said that she didn't care about the photos, that no one would believe us, and she could play the perfect victim act. She was not wrong. So we went to her husband and told him the whole story. He was pretty pissed, but he didn't take it on us. We told him exactly what we did, and he was perfectly calm. After all, it was just the church money, and his wife was giving us shit, and we had to put a stop to it. He wanted to know how long the affair was, so we calculated for about 8 months and gave him the photos. We never knew what happened to the priest, but the last time we saw the lady, she was bruised and she looked miserable. We never heard about the priest, only that he left to a different state. No one knew about the affair or our blackmail, but we ended up becoming friends with the husband, and he gave us recommendations and jobs. Even after college, he helped land jobs in different cities, and we were allowed to use some extra benefits of his business. At the end, he divorced the lady Karen, and he remarried. We never knew exactly what happened to the lady Karen since she also left the state as well.